You wake up face down in something that smells suspiciously like goat. Not a goat, just goat. The straw mattress under you is doing its best impression of a bed, which is impressive considering it feels more like sleeping on a very disappointed broom. There's a draft crawling through the cracks in the wooden wall beside you. So congratulations, you've either been transported to a Viking village or you've made some terrible real estate choices. Your head aches. That's probably from the mead. Or the blunt force trauma. Either way, you're not in Kansas anymore, unless Kansas recently added sheep inside the house and decided fire pits belong in the middle of the living room. There's no alarm clock here. No soft piano ringtone to gently nudge you awake. No smartphone buzzing with a reminder to hydrate. Instead, you're greeted by the sounds of someone outside angrily shouting about a fishing net, a baby crying like it's summoning a Norse god of chaos, and a rooster who clearly didn't read the memo about inside voices. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always strangely fascinating to see who's watching this while pretending to fall asleep at 3 a.m. You sit up slowly. Every joint cracks like kindling in a campfire. The room is dim and smells of smoke, sweat, and salted fish, a delightful bouquet known around here as Viking Glade plug-in. There are no windows, just a few slits in the walls for light and air, but mostly for cold to come and say hi. You see a low wooden table, a few clay pots, a fur cloak that might still have fleas with names and backstories, and your boots. They're made of leather and regret. You slip them on anyway. The floor is dirt. Not dirty. Just dirt. That's the flooring. No tiles, no carpet. No heated bathroom tiles that warm your toes in the winter. Just earth. Occasionally mixed with chicken droppings. Because chickens don't care where you sleep. You step outside, blinking against the gray morning. It's cold. The kind of cold that goes right through your bones and whispers rude things to your immune system. There's fog hanging low over the village. Maybe it's fog. Maybe it's the aftershave of the gods. But either way, it doesn't improve visibility. The smell of wood smoke clings to everything. It's in your clothes, your hair, your very soul. The village is small, maybe 20 or 30 longhouses arranged in a loose pattern that suggests town planning wasn't really a thing yet. Muddy footpaths snake through them, and there's a lot of yelling. Some of it in Old Norse. Some of it in what you assume is just parenting. People are already busy. A blacksmith bangs away at a blade, sending sparks into the sky like tiny, angry fireflies. A woman is chopping vegetables with the kind of focus you usually reserve for disarming bombs. Children run past you, barefoot and somehow immune to frostbite. And a man with a beard so glorious it could be considered a minor deity nods at you like he knows you. You nod back because you have no idea what else to do. There's no coffee. Let's just get that out of the way. No coffee. No lattes. No foam arch shaped like leaves. There's mead, but it's not really a breakfast thing. Unless you're trying to forget that you have to row across a fjord later. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a bowl of barley porridge. It tastes like warm beige. If you're lucky, someone's thrown in a handful of dried berries. If you're really lucky, there aren't any bugs in it. But let's be honest, that's optimistic. You eat with your hands because utensils are still a novelty, and also because you're pretty sure the communal spoon hasn't been washed since someone named Bjorn died holding it. There's a communal cup of goat milk too. It's sour. Not yogurt sour. Just wrong sour. You drink it anyway because hydration is important. Even in the 9th century, a man sits beside you. He smells like smoke, sweat, and glory. You think he's your host, or possibly your captor. Hard to tell. He offers you a chunk of dried fish and says something in a language that sounds like gargling gravel. You nod again. It's becoming your default survival tactic. As you eat, you start to notice details. The way people glance at the sky, not for the weather, but for omens. The way every tool, every bowl, every scrap of clothing is made by hand. The way dogs and chickens just roam around like they own the place. And the way the village has exactly zero privacy. None. Zip. Everyone sees everything. That thing you just did with your nose. Yeah. The entire village knows about it now. You're told, more through gestures than words, that it's time to work. You follow a group of men and women out of the village and into the forest. Some carry axes. Others have baskets. You have optimism. That won't last. You're put to work chopping wood, which is adorable because you've never chopped anything bigger than an Amazon box. But you try. The axe is heavier than your dignity, and the wood is either enchanted or hates you personally. After half an hour, your hands are blistered, your back is screaming, and you've managed to split exactly one log, and that was mostly by accident. Someone laughs. Not unkindly. More like they're laughing with you. Even though you're not laughing. The day drags. There's no lunch break, no union, no HR department to complain to about the unsafe conditions. Just more work. Hauling water from a stream. Cleaning fish. Tending goats that look at you like they know you're not from around here. At some point, someone gives you a bone. You assume it's a snack. It's not. It's a tool. For scraping. Scraping what? You never find out. You just scrape things until your fingers go numb. By late afternoon, you're allowed to stop. Not because you're done, just because the sun is setting and everyone's hands are too cold to function. You drag yourself back to the longhouse, where a smoky fire burns in the center. It smells like your breakfast, your clothing, and your soul are all being gently roasted. Dinner is more barley mush. This time with boiled cabbage. Exciting. You try to be grateful. You really do. But your modern brain is whispering things like Uber Eats and Hot Pockets, and you can't stop it. Someone plays a crude flute. Another tells a story. You understand none of it, but the rhythm is soothing. There's laughter. People press close to the fire. It's communal, it's warm, it's itchy. The fleas are back, and they brought friends. Eventually, you crawl back to your mattress of broken dreams and decomposing straw. You're exhausted. Your muscles ache. Your hands look like you've been wrestling barbed wire. You smell like fear and goat. As you close your eyes, you hear the wind howl outside. The fire pops gently in the hearth. Someone snores nearby, possibly human, possibly goat. It's hard to say anymore. You pull the scratchy wool blanket tighter around you and realize something very important. You are not built for this. And this was just day one. Sleep well. We'll see how you do in the morning. You wake up to the sound of something urinating near your head. It's not a nightmare. It's real. And yes, it's the goat. Again. Apparently, goats don't observe personal boundaries, or house training, or dignity. It's still dark out, because, of course, the sun doesn't rise when you want it to. It rises when it pleases, which is sometime after you've already stepped in something unfortunate. You stretch, if you can call it that, and your back immediately informs you that sleeping on hay stuffed into what might be a reused sack is not ideal spinal support. Your legs are stiff. Your hands are raw from yesterday's enthusiastic but deeply ineffective wood chopping, and your mouth tastes like someone tried to ferment a boot in it overnight. You rise slowly, like a corpse that's reconsidering retirement. Around you, the longhouse is already stirring. The others have been up for a while. The fire is crackling weakly, and smoke curls around the ceiling, looking for any gap to escape through. You envy it. The morning routine is simple, and by simple, we mean bleak. First, you splash icy water onto your face from a wooden bowl, pretending this counts as washing. There's no soap, no toothpaste, No fancy peppermint mouthwash. Your dental hygiene consists of try not to lose too many teeth before 30. One woman uses a birch twig to pick her teeth, with the same intensity a surgeon uses on a heart. You figure you should try it too. It tastes like forest and regret. You stick with the splash and hope method. You think about coffee again. It's starting to become a theme. But no, there's still no coffee. Just more goat milk and a porridge, so lumpy it could qualify as a building material. You chew your breakfast while staring into the distance, wondering what poor life decision brought you here. Possibly time travel. Possibly hubris. Possibly the mead. Outside, the village is coming alive in its own disorganized way. Chickens squawk. Dogs bark at invisible threats. Someone yells about a broken cart axle like it's a personal betrayal. You step out into the morning mist, which smells like wet wood, smoke, and possibly something dead nearby. It's a full-bodied scent experience. Today, you're told, you'll be training. That sounds exciting, until you realize it means you'll be handed a weapon and expected to know what to do with it. A wooden sword is thrust into your hands. It feels like a baseball bat, and a broomstick had a very violent child. Your instructor is a man whose face looks like it was carved out of a glacier, and then weathered by several wars and one difficult marriage. He doesn't speak much. He just hits you. Not hard. Just enough to remind you that you're holding the sword incorrectly, standing incorrectly, breathing incorrectly. You try again. He hits you again. It's going to be a long morning. The other trainees are mostly teenage boys, with the wiry strength of people raised on hard labor and bad decisions. They swing their weapons with a kind of cheerful savagery that makes you deeply uncomfortable. There's a girl, too, probably younger than you, but with eyes that say she's killed at least 2 wolves and one very unlucky tax collector. You are, by all measures, not impressive. You swing too high, too slow. You don't duck fast enough. Your block is more of a gentle suggestion than actual defense. Eventually, the instructor just sighs, and as you run laps around the village. It's muddy. Your boots are too big. You fall twice. One of the dogs joins you for fun. It's unclear whether it's encouraging you or hunting you. Later, you're given a shield. It's heavy and made of wood and iron, and you quickly learn that shields are not for comfort. They're for not dying. You practice the shield wall with a few others, pressing shoulder to shoulder while someone throws things at you. Potatoes, mostly. But still, you begin to understand why the Vikings were so angry all the time. Training continues for hours. There's no water break, no protein shakes, no inspirational music montage. Just the steady grind of repetition, mud, and pain. By the time you're allowed to stop, your muscles are shaking and your brain has fully exited the building. Lunch is guess what? Barley. Cold this time. And some dried fish that might actually be older than you. You eat it anyway. Because hunger is stronger than taste preferences. And because no one is offering you alternatives. You would give anything for a microwave. Or a granola bar. Or a vending machine. After the meal, it's back to work. You help repair one of the boats by holding things and trying not to break them. Vikings rely on boats the way modern people rely on internet access. Without them, society collapses. You learn about clinker bill construction, overlapping planks sealed with wool soaked in pine tar. It smells like a pine-scented nightmare. But it's strong, water-resistant, efficient. You nod like you understand any of this. You do not. In the afternoon, someone gets injured. It's minor, a gash on the forearm, but it's treated with a poultice made of moss, honey, and possibly witchcraft. The village healer doesn't smile. She hums a tune that sounds suspiciously like a threat and mutters things under her breath while grinding herbs. There's no anesthesia, just pain screaming and the vague hope that it won't get infected. You help gather firewood next. You're not trusted with an axe this time, which is fair. You carry branches and sticks back to the longhouse, your hands covered in sap. Everything smells like smoke and pine now. It's somehow both soothing and deeply unsettling. By evening, you're too tired to think. Dinner is better. Someone killed a pig. There's meat. It's a celebration of sorts. The mead flows. People laugh. Someone plays a harp badly. You sit by the fire, warm for the first time all day. Your eyes droop. Your body wants to quit, but the villagers want to talk, or tell stories, or test your ability to consume mead without passing out. You try to follow the conversation. It's about Thor or a storm, or possibly a goat that won't die. You're not sure. You hear about how Odin gave his eye for wisdom, how Loki once turned into a mare, how the world will end in fire and wolves. It's oddly comforting, knowing they expect the end too. Makes your current situation feel less dramatic. Eventually, you stagger back to your spot in the longhouse. Your bed is still lumpy. The goat is still rude. Your bones feel like soup inside a sack of regret. You lay down and stare at the roof beams above you, wondering how people survived this. And the truth is, they didn't. Not for long. Disease, injury, childbirth, battle, famine. Most people didn't make it past 40. You're living on borrowed time here. And yet they laugh. They sing. They build. They persist. You close your eyes. You hear the fire crackle. A dog barks somewhere. Someone farts. Loudly. You pretend it was the goat. Sleep comes slowly, like everything else here. But it comes. You've survived one more day. 9 to go. Rest well. You'll need it. You wake up to the sensation of something crawling across your face. Before panic sets in, you slap it away and discover it was just a beetle. A large, unapologetic beetle. Probably with a name. It hits the floor with a dull thud and disappears into the straw like it pays rent here. You lie still for a moment, reevaluating your life choices, your commitment to historical immersion, and the possibility that you are developing a deep, personal hatred for livestock. The goat is gone this morning, replaced by something worse, silence. Not the peaceful, gentle kind that whispers serenity into your ears. No, this is the heavy, suspicious kind. The kind that usually comes right before something sets on fire or someone yells your name in a very bad way. You slowly sit up. Your muscles protest like disgruntled employees working unpaid overtime. Everything hurts. Shoulders, arms, thighs, muscle groups you didn't even know existed have sent in their resignation. Your fingers are covered in blisters from yesterday's attempts at shield practice, and your lower back feels like it was drop-kicked by a war horse. The fire has burned low, leaving the longhouse chilly and draped in shadows. A few others are already awake, quietly moving about, feeding the fire, adjusting cloaks, trying to warm their hands with breath. There's no chatter, just the gentle crackle of flames and the soft creak of old wood. You shuffle to the wash basin and splash your face with cold water again. It does nothing except remind you how awake you aren't. You're handed a piece of rough wool to wipe your face with. It smells like mildew and faintly of old onions. You use it anyway, because you've given up. You think longingly, again, of toothbrushes, scented body wash, and soft towels. Here, personal hygiene is mostly a public event. No privacy, no mirrors, just a hope that nobody else smells better than you. Which, to be fair, they don't. The whole village shares one collective scent: smoke, fish, and feet. Breakfast arrives in the form of yesterday's porridge, possibly the same literal bowl. You stare into it. It stares back. You eat it anyway, because hunger doesn't negotiate. Today, you're told, will be another training day. This time, weapons and drills. Because what you really need right now, with every joint screaming in betrayal, is to swing sharp metal objects around. You consider faking an illness. But then you remember that being sick here isn't a break. It's just a faster way to die in a straw bed. You're handed a seeks, a short blade, halfway between a knife and a small sword. It's surprisingly heavy. The handle is wrapped in leather and history. You hold it like a tourist. Your instructor immediately frowns. He shows you, with slow, deliberate movements, how to grip it properly, how to lunge, how to slash, how not to cut your own leg off. You try to mimic him. You fail, repeatedly. But to his credit, he doesn't sigh too loudly. There's no real training ground, just a patch of dirt behind the longhouse. The earth is packed down from years of practice, stained here and there with what you're hoping is just wine or berry juice. You're paired with someone your size, which turns out to be a kid who can't be older than 13. He immediately knocks your blade aside and taps your ribs with his own, smiling like it's recess. You try again. He wins again. You are effectively the tutorial enemy in his Viking video game. Somewhere in the distance, you're pretty sure a raven is watching and judging you. Drills continue. Over and over. Lunge. Block. Step. Parry. Again. And again. Your shoulders ache. Your knuckles are raw. Your arms feel like overcooked noodles. The instructor corrects your posture for the 10th time, and you start to understand why Viking warriors were so good at fighting. It's because training was marginally less painful than actual combat. Around midday, you're permitted to rest. Rest, meaning you're sent to haul buckets of water from the stream. The buckets are heavy, the stream is far, and your boots leak. But hey, it's a different kind of suffering. You can appreciate variety. You drink from the stream. It's clean, cold, and slightly metallic. No filters. No warning labels. No lemon-infused electrolyte nonsense. Just water, the way nature intended, potentially full of parasites and optimism. Lunch is served. Some dried herring and a small chunk of bread. It's chewy enough to count as cardio. You gnaw on it while sitting near the fire, watching smoke twist toward the roof and escape out the small hole they call a chimney. It's kind of beautiful, in a my lungs are full of creosote way. In the afternoon, you help with weaving. Yes, weaving. Even warriors have to pull their weight around here. Cloth needs to be made, tunics patched, sails repaired. You sit with a group of women and a few older men, threading wool through wooden looms that look like torture devices from a museum. Your hands aren't made for this. The thread snaps. You tangle it. You're given a simpler task, spinning. That goes worse. You try not to cry. One of the elders pats your shoulder and mutters something that might be encouraging, or might be a curse. You can't tell. The loom work is calming though. Rhythmic. Meditative. The others chat in Old Norse, voices soft, occasionally laughing. You don't understand the words, but the tone is soothing. They're telling stories. Gossiping, probably. Sharing little complaints about the weather, their goats, or the man who snored too loudly last night. Later, there's singing. A soft, wordless tune passed between the weavers like breath. The melody feels ancient. Older than the village. Older than memory. You sit there, listening, threading one mistake after another through the loom, and for the first time in days, you don't feel completely out of place. When evening falls, the village gathers again. This time there's a bit more food. Someone traded with a nearby farm. There's cheese. Real cheese. Salty, crumbly, and probably aged in a cave. It tastes like redemption. You eat more than your share, and pretend not to notice the judging looks. A skald, Viking storyteller, takes center stage by the fire. He's an old man with white hair, a braided beard, and the kind of voice that makes you want to sit still and listen even if you don't understand a word. He tells a saga. It's long, winding, and filled with names that sound like someone dropped a hammer on a keyboard. You catch the gist. There's a hero, a sword, a betrayal, a sea monster, possibly a wedding. It's all very dramatic and completely unverified. But everyone leans in close. Every flicker of the fire casts shadows that make the story feel alive. You think about how stories like this were everything to these people. Entertainment, history, law, morality, all wrapped in rhyme and rhythm, passed down mouth to mouth like sacred cargo. No books, no backup drives, just memory and voice. Eventually, the flames burn low. People drift off to sleep. You return to your scratchy, uneven, probably haunted bed of straw and fur. You lie there in the dark, surrounded by snoring, creaking, and the occasional animal noise that might be an owl, or something much worse. Your body is wrecked. Your mind is foggy. But somewhere deep in your bones, you feel something shifting, a kind of quiet resilience, a whisper of, I made it through another day. You're still here, still breathing, still losing every sparring match, and making every chore twice as hard as it needs to be, but surviving in your own modern, confused, deeply out-of-place way. Sleep comes slowly. You hear the distant sound of waves hitting the shore, the crackle of fading embers, the gentle murmur of someone dreaming nearby, and then silence. Not the ominous kind, the peaceful kind. You're safe. For now. Sleep well. Tomorrow's not going to be any easier. You wake up to the sound of someone vomiting just outside the longhouse. It's not you. Yet. But give it time. Your eyes open slowly, like they've been glued shut with dried sweat and smoke. You've been sleeping with your mouth open again, judging by the taste. A rat might have walked across your tongue during the night. Everything smells like unwashed hair, damp wool, and what can only be described as historic feet. You sit up. The straw bedding sticks to your skin in clumps, a reminder that the concept of personal space in a Viking longhouse is more of a myth than Thor's hammer. Around you, the others are stirring. Someone is coughing. Someone else is groaning. You're not sure if this is a normal morning or the early stages of a village-wide plague. You stumble outside, blinking against the early light, which is not so much sunrise as it is cloudy and aggressively damp. It's drizzling. Again. Because of course it is. Your boots are still wet from yesterday, and now your socks, made of coarse wool and, apparently, ancient curses, squish in protest. The vomiting culprit turns out to be a man who lost a drinking contest last night. He looks at you with eyes full of sorrow and meat-based regret, then promptly returns to his important business with the ground. You nod solemnly, as if you understand his pain. You do not. But you also don't want to be volunteered to clean anything up. Before you get too comfortable, let's get the business stuff out of the way. If you're still here, somehow awake, probably horizontal, and wrapped in a blanket, while imagining how badly you do in a real Viking village, take a second to like this video, and maybe subscribe if you actually enjoy this kind of content. Let me know in the comments what time it is for you, and where you're watching from. Because, believe it or not, I read those while pretending to be productive. Alright, back to the suffering. Today is your third full day in the Viking village, and the novelty has officially worn off. You're not a time traveler anymore. You're just tired. Breakfast is more of the same. Porridge that could double as wall insulation, goat milk that tastes faintly of goat personality, and a slice of bread so hard you could use it as a weapon. One of the children gnaws on theirs like a small Viking beaver. You barely manage to chew yours into submission. After the meal, it's time for chores. Again, because in Viking society, everyone contributes. That means you too. Even if you're basically just a walking liability with modern allergies and a poor attitude. Today you're assigned to the smokehouse. You're thrilled, absolutely overjoyed to spend the next several hours surrounded by fish that smell like they died twice. You help hang the newest catch on wooden racks, the air thick with the scent of salt, smoke, and something vaguely suspicious. There's no refrigeration, of course. Just salt and prayers. Mostly salt. You gag quietly and power through. At one point, a fish falls on your foot. It stares up at you with dead eyes, as if to say, "You don't belong here." You nod in agreement. After that olfactory adventure, it's time to help with the laundry. A task which, in Viking times, was not nearly as quaint as historical reenactors would have you believe. There's no warm water, no scented detergent, no cheerful humming while folding. Just a freezing river, rocks, and the distinct possibility of frostbite. You carry a bundle of linen down to the riverbank, where a few others are already scrubbing violently like they're trying to erase the sins of the fabric. You kneel by the water and start slapping shirts against a rock. It feels more like vengeance than cleaning. The water is brutally cold. Within minutes, your hands are numb and raw, and your back is locked in a permanent hunch. You try to wring out a tunic and nearly dislocate your wrists. Someone laughs at your technique. You laugh too, but mostly out of despair. Eventually, you stagger back to the village with a load of dripping clothes. Your fingers are pruned. Your arms are shaking. Your soul is quietly filing a complaint with HR, except HR doesn't exist here. Just your ancestors, silently judging you from Valhalla. After a brief meal, some stew that tastes like generic meat with a hint of sadness, you're assigned to the fields. Because guess what? Vikings don't just raid and pillage. They farm. A lot. You're handed a crude hoe and pointed toward a patch of earth that's more rocks than soil. Your job is to break it up and make it ready for planting. You start hacking at the ground. It fights back. Every swing rattles through your shoulders. Every clump of dirt conceals a rock the size of a ham. You sweat, you swear. You consider faking a fainting spell, but then you remember that collapsing in a Viking village doesn't earn you sympathy. It earns you extra chores once you regain consciousness. Some of the children help you for a while. They're stronger than they look, and way more coordinated. One of them picks up a rock you struggled with for 10 minutes and tosses it aside like it's a paperweight. You want to cry. You dig harder instead. Eventually, the elder farmer inspects your work and grunts something that might be approval, or mild disappointment. You can't tell. You just nod and pretend it's a compliment. Back at the longhouse, you wash your face with cold water again. The icy splash revives you just enough to regret being conscious. You dry off with the same onion-scented wool and collapse near the hearth, where the warmth lulls you into a dazed stupor. Dinner tonight is slightly better. Wild duck and turnips, cooked in a clay pot that smells like 400 years of stew ghosts. The duck is chewy but flavorful. The turnips taste like dirt pretending to be a vegetable. You eat everything anyway. Hunger is the best seasoning. After dinner, there's more storytelling. Tonight's saga is about a woman who turned into a sea creature to escape her enemies. Or maybe she was cursed. Or married badly. Either way, it ends with a shipwreck and a dramatic monologue about honor. You find yourself drifting off during the tale. The fire's warmth, the rhythmic chanting, the sheer exhaustion, it's all too much. Your eyes close. You jerk awake, then close again. It's like a sleepover where the only activity is existential dread. Eventually, you crawl to your bedding. Your joints creak. Your hair smells like firewood. You lie down, wrap yourself in an itchy wool blanket, and close your eyes. You think about your life before this. The comforts, the boredom, the indoor plumbing, the heating, the existence of pillows. You think about all the things you took for granted, like toilet paper and ibuprofen, and still, you're kind of impressed. These people live hard lives. Every day is work. Every task is a challenge. But they laugh. They sing. They build. They endure. And so do you. Barely. Sleep comes quicker tonight. The ache in your limbs has become familiar. The sounds of the village are almost comforting. Fire crackling, people breathing, the occasional goat arguing with reality. You made it. One more day. And against all odds, you're starting to adapt. Just don't get too comfortable. You still haven't even seen the worst part yet. Tomorrow, we talk about medical care. Sleep tight. You wake up to blood. Not yours. Thankfully. It's from someone's nose, probably from last night's fun wrestling match near the fire, which began as a show of strength and ended with one man snoring in the dirt and the other bleeding with pride. The stain has soaked into the straw near your head, and the smell is metallic and sharp, like iron and regret. You sit up slowly, hoping not to dislodge any essential organs. Everything hurts again, or maybe still. It's hard to tell when there's never been a break in the pain long enough to make comparisons. Your back is one fused slab of misery. Your knees sound like a pair of old barn doors opening every time you move. You look around and wonder, quietly, and not for the first time, what Viking medicine has in store for you should you so much as sprain an ankle. Spoiler alert, it involves knives. Probably fire. Definitely screaming. Outside, the weather is still emotionally unavailable. The sky is that pale, moody gray that says, don't make plans. The drizzle is light, but persistent. Your boots are now more puddle than footwear. The ground has turned to a kind of mud soup. You squelch across it like a reluctant swamp creature, clutching your cloak tighter and trying not to think about how you used to complain about wet socks back home. You were innocent then. You had hope. You reach the communal water barrel and splash cold liquid on your face. It's slightly brown. You choose not to question why. You wipe it off with the same piece of wool that now has a personality of its own. It smells vaguely of mildew and broken dreams. As you head back toward the longhouse, you notice a man sitting by himself on a stump, staring at his hand. It's swollen. Badly. The fingers are purple. One of them is oozing something unpleasant, thick, yellowish, like soup you absolutely don't want the recipe for. This, you're told, is where Viking medical care begins, and often ends. There is no clinic. No cozy waiting room with soft music and pamphlets about mindfulness. Just an old woman with bone tools and a level of confidence that borders on alarming. She's the village healer. Her fingers are stained with herbs, blood, and possibly magic. She doesn't smile much, which makes sense, given her job consists mostly of cutting, boiling, praying, and pretending that infection is just a test of character. You watch as she pokes the man's finger with a piece of metal heated in the fire. The smell that follows can only be described as medieval barbecue. He bites down on a stick and lets out a low growl, but doesn't scream. You try to look away, but your horrified curiosity wins. After burning the wound, she packs it with a paste made from moss, animal fat, and something that smells suspiciously like onions. Then she wraps it in linen and gives him a slug of fermented something that might be alcohol, or might be horse piss. He drinks it all the same. And this, apparently, is one of the better outcomes. Infection is a constant companion here. A splinter can kill you. A small cut can become a gaping wound in a matter of days. You watch a child with a swollen toe limp past, and no one panics. It's just part of life. A life that fully intends to be short. Thank you very much. You're pulled aside and given a job helping the healer today. Not because you're skilled, but because someone has to fetch water, hold limbs down, and try not to faint. Lucky you. Your first task is holding a boy's leg while she sets a broken bone. The sound it makes is memorable. You clench your jaw. The boy screams once, then breathes through it like a warrior. You quietly whisper an apology to every school nurse you've ever complained to. The healer doesn't speak much, but she's focused, efficient, and incredibly precise. She uses a mixture of herbs, spider webs, and prayers to treat wounds. You're not sure which part actually works. Maybe all of it. Maybe none. Maybe the fear of death is what really keeps people alive. There's no anesthesia. No numbing agents. Pain is just something you deal with. You start to understand why Vikings were so obsessed with bravery. It wasn't about glory. It was about survival. It was about not flinching when someone poured boiling honey into your infected elbow. After lunch, if you can call dried fish an anxiety lunch, you help carry a woman who's given birth. She's pale, weak, but alive. So is the baby, crying like it already knows what kind of world it's been born into. Childbirth here is a gamble, a big one. The midwives know what to do, but even with experience, the odds are 50-50 on a good day. No sterile tools, no monitoring, just instincts, prayers to Freya, and a very, very strong stomach. By late afternoon, your tunic smells like a butcher's apron. You've seen blood, pus, bone. At one point, you stepped on something that crunched, and you don't want to think about it too hard. You rinse your hands in the stream, but the smell clings. It always does. Dinner is quiet tonight. People are tired. There's a funeral tomorrow. Someone didn't make it. No wailing. No spectacle. Just a quiet understanding that death is never far away. You eat your stew in silence, chewing slowly, thinking about how lucky you are to live in a world where a paper cut doesn't carry the threat of amputation. That night, as you lie on your straw bedding, you feel every scrape, every ache, every bruise. You think about the healer, how calm she was, how many people she's buried, how many she's saved. You wonder if she dreams of blood, or if she's too tired to dream at all. Your body is tired, but your mind won't stop buzzing. There's a dull, throbbing ache in your shoulders. Your hands are stained. Your stomach is unsettled. But there's also something else, respect. Not for the violence, but for the endurance, for the strength it takes to keep going in a world with no safety nets. No hospitals, no second chances. You fall asleep thinking about antiseptic, and hand sanitizer, and Band-Aids, and how utterly luxurious they are. You might last a few more days here, but only if you don't stub your toe. Because here, that might actually kill you. Sleep well. While you still can, you wake up to singing. Sort of. It's somewhere between a chant and a growl, a low, rumbling sound that vibrates in your chest before your eyes even open. It's not unpleasant, but it's not exactly soothing either. It sounds like someone's trying to serenade a thunderstorm, or summon one. You sit up slowly. Your body is now in the bargaining stage of grief. The aches and pains haven't gone away. They've just organized themselves into departments. Your back still feels like it's been personally insulted by Odin. Your knees are operating under protest, and your fingers are permanently curled from carrying buckets of misery and trauma. The singing continues outside the longhouse, rising and falling in slow, heavy waves. It's rhythmic, repetitive, hypnotic almost. You pull on your damp boots, of course they're still wet, and shuffle outside. A small group of warriors is gathered in the clearing, shirtless and barefoot despite the cold, slamming their fists against their chests in a synchronized pattern. You blink. One of them is covered in dried blood. Another has feathers braided into his beard. You are, apparently, late to morning training, which today means combat drills. And here you thought maybe there'd be a break after yesterday's impromptu bloodfest. Silly, soft, 21st century human. The training area is a packed circle, still slick from last night's rain. Around it are various wooden stumps, practice dummies, and a rack of weapons that all look like they've been used more for murder than training. Axes, spears, wooden swords that look more like tree trunks with handles. Before you get too far, let me gently remind you, if you're still here, probably half asleep with one sock off and drool on your pillow, maybe take a second to like the video and subscribe. Only if you actually enjoy it, of course. No pressure. Drop a comment too. Where are you watching from, and what time is it? I love reading through those, while I pretend I didn't just spend 3 hours writing about Viking toe fungus. Now, back to your regularly scheduled suffering. You're handed a training axe. It's dull, splintered, and entirely too heavy for what you're emotionally prepared to deal with today. The instructor, a man with shoulders the size of small boulders, grunts something at you. You nod as if you understand, which you don't, and raise the axe awkwardly. The first thing you learn is that weapon training isn't glamorous. There's no slow-motion spinning or shouting your own name. There's just repetition, hours of it, chopping down with the axe, bringing it up, side swings, footwork, over and over, until your arms feel like they're filled with cooked barley, and your grip is as useful as wet bread. You're paired with a partner who clearly doesn't see this as practice. He lunges at you with a wooden sword, and you barely block in time. The impact sends a shock through your entire body and knocks the wind out of you. He grins. You cough and consider faking your own death. Eventually, the drills switch to spear training. You're told to stab a straw dummy repeatedly, which you do with the enthusiasm of someone who's been up since before sunrise and doesn't remember what joy feels like. The straw dummy, despite being inanimate, feels like it's judging you. At some point, someone mentions shield walls, and suddenly you're shoulder to shoulder with 6 other people holding wooden planks as shields, while a group across from you does the same. The instructor yells, and both lines charge. It's like a mosh pit choreographed by a blacksmith. You slam into the opposite wall of shields, and the force nearly knocks you flat. A bearded man with exactly 3 teeth grunts something in your face, and you make a high-pitched sound that definitely wasn't fear. Definitely not. You do this 3 more times. By the end, your arm is numb, your legs are jelly, and your dignity is buried somewhere under the mud. Finally a break. Except it's not a break. It's endurance training. You're sent to haul logs from the forest to the edge of the village. Why? So you learn to carry things while exhausted. Of course. Logical. The log is roughly the size of your despair. You hoist it onto your shoulder and instantly regret everything. Every step is a negotiation. Every breath is shallow. Your feet sink into the mud, like they've accepted this as their final resting place. Eventually, mercifully, the log is deposited. You collapse beside it. One of the older warriors offers you a sip of something strong and homemade. It burns all the way down. You feel both warmer and significantly more flammable. Lunch is more fish. You no longer question what kind. You just eat. The stew has chunks. You don't ask. A piece of bread is handed to you, stale, but edible if you chew it for several days. After lunch, there's knife work. Carving. You're shown how to shape spear shafts, cut leather, and whittle handles. The instructor does it with grace and speed. You, on the other hand, look like you're trying to carve wood with a spoon. You earn 2 small blisters and 1 deep splinter. You're told to spit on it. You do. It doesn't help. But you pretend it does, because you're trying to blend in. At some point during knife practice, someone's blade slips, and blood flows fast from a finger. The healer rushes in, applies moss paste and pressure, and the man continues carving with his other hand. You want to sit down and cry, but there are no designated cry spaces in Viking society. Before dinner, there's a wrestling match. You're volunteered. You didn't volunteer, but you're volunteered. The crowd circles around you and your opponent, a wiry man with shoulders like climbing ropes and a nose that's definitely been broken more than once. You last 7 seconds, possibly 5, depending on when you start counting. He flips you, drops you, and pins you before you fully understand what's happening. The crowd cheers. You lie there wondering if your ancestors are watching and quietly disowning you. Dinner is celebratory for them. More stew. More meat. Your limbs twitch involuntarily every time you shift. Your muscles are so sore they feel pixelated. You chew slowly, methodically, as if moving too quickly will cause something to rupture. There's stories again tonight, but they're all about battles. Sword songs. Boasts of strength and glory. Your eyes are half closed. Your head heavy. You feel like you've aged 10 years in a day. You have dirt behind your ears, blood under your fingernails, and what you suspect is goose fat in your hair. You drag yourself to bed and lie down on the straw. Your dreams are chaotic, a swirl of axes, shouting, feathers, and rain. You wake up briefly to the sound of snoring and farting and think, I live here now. But you also survived. Barely. Tomorrow, you'll be learning about social hierarchy. Spoiler alert, you're not at the top. Sleep tight. You wake up to arguing. Voices, loud, gravelly, and definitely not using their inside ones, are echoing through the longhouse. You don't understand half the words, but the tone is unmistakable. Someone is mad. Someone else is wrong. And you, with your crusty eyelids and throbbing calves, are already regretting being conscious. The fire has gone out. Again. The smoke from last night still hangs in the air like a bitter memory, and everything smells faintly of ash, sweat, and something boiled that probably shouldn't have been. Your blanket has migrated halfway across the room. You reach for it, then stop, realizing someone is already standing over you. He's tall, broad, tattooed in places you didn't think people had skin. He snorts and nudges you with the toe of his boot. Not gently. Get up, he says in a voice made of gravel and disappointment. Welcome to your first day navigating Viking social life. You stagger outside, blinking at the pale sun, like it personally wronged you. Around the village, people are already moving, hauling firewood, stirring pots, chopping things that look vaguely edible. It's buzzing with activity, and by buzzing, I mean yelling across courtyards and threatening chickens with knives. Viking society doesn't really have a middle class. You're either in charge, related to someone in charge, or at the mercy of those who are. And based on your current position, sleeping on the edge of the longhouse, smelling like damp leather and poor decisions, you are very much not in charge. Hierarchy here is strict but fluid. It's built on strength, reputation, and the number of enemy skulls you've used as decorative bowls. Not everyone's a warrior, of course. There are blacksmiths, weavers, farmers, and the poor man whose entire job today seems to be chasing geese with a stick. But even within those roles, there's status. The man who makes swords for the chieftain? Respected. The woman who brews the best mead? Revered. The guy who spilled fish guts in the mead last week? Still being laughed at. You, as an outsider and a very confused one at that, are hovering somewhere between indentured mascot and portable furniture. Still, the Vikings are not without their social rules. There's a code, a rough one. Respect for elders. Loyalty to your clan. Honor in battle. Don't steal. Don't lie. Unless it's funny. Then it's fine. Breakfast today is a slightly different experience. You're seated near the lower status folk, mostly servants and younger warriors in training. The food is rougher. The bread is definitely older. And the porridge? Well, it bites back. There's something crunchy in it that shouldn't be. You chew anyway. Across the room, at the high table, the chieftain sits with his inner circle. These are the ones with the cleanest cloaks, the most decorated weapons, and the kind of confidence that comes from knowing no one's going to make you clean a pigpen ever again. One of them is telling a story. Loudly. It involves a raid, a ship caught in a storm, and something about a goat that saved the day. Everyone laughs. You smile along, not entirely sure if the goat is a metaphor or a punchline. Later, you're pulled aside by a woman who's clearly important. Her jewelry clinks when she moves, and people step out of her way, without being asked. She asks you to help gather herbs. You agree, because you say no to important people exactly once in this village. The herb gathering takes you beyond the village into the woods. She tells you about each plant, what it cures, what it poisons, what it reveals. You pretend to take mental notes, but really you're just trying not to trip over roots and embarrass yourself again. On the walk back, she tells you about how gossip works in the village. It's faster than the wind and often less accurate. Everyone knows everyone else's business. Who's sleeping with whom? Who stole the honey? Who's been sneaking meat from the smokehouse? It's not malicious, it's survival. Information is currency, and you're very much overdrawn. By the time you return, you're handed a broom and told to sweep the longhouse. You obey, not because you're submissive, but because you still don't know what happens when you don't follow orders, and you're not emotionally prepared to find out. While sweeping, you overhear more stories. It's always stories here. About past battles, lost loves, haunted forests. One man talks about a time he saw a draugr, a walking corpse, wandering near the fjord. Everyone listens. No one laughs. In Viking culture, reputation is everything. What people say about you after you're dead matters more than how you felt while you were alive. That's why warriors yell their names in battle, just in case someone's around to remember it. Names mean power. Lineage means protection. And being funny. That's a legitimate social skill. If you can make the chieftain laugh, you're safe for another day. You try this, later that evening. You make a joke during dinner. Something about goats and the porridge being related. A few people laugh. Someone snorts beer through their nose. You think you've made it, until you realize you interrupted a story from the chieftain's cousin. The silence that follows is instructional. You are not stabbed, which is good, but you are sent to help with the latrines. Social status, unchanged. Later that night, there's singing. Not the morning kind. This is softer, warmer. Songs about the sea, the stars, the gods. You sit on the edge of the gathering, wrapped in your itchy cloak, watching faces lit by firelight. For a moment, everything is quiet, peaceful, even beautiful. The children curl up beside their parents. The warriors lean against logs, drink in hand. Someone passes you a hunk of cheese. It tastes like old boots, but you eat it anyway. You realize that social life here isn't about comfort, it's about community. Shared work, shared stories, shared suffering. You may not be anyone important yet, but you're starting to understand how the pieces fit, how people earn trust, how names are remembered, how a stranger might, one day, become a brother, or at least, not the person who cleans the latrines. Progress. As the fire crackles and the stars slowly appear in the icy sky, you settle onto your straw mat. The longhouse hums with the soft breathing of the exhausted. Even the snores seem gentler tonight. Your body still aches. Your place in this world is still precarious. But for now, you are here. And you survived another day. Sleep well, you honorary Viking disaster. Tomorrow, you face the arena. Or something dangerously close to it. You wake up to drums. Not the soft, distant kind. These are full-body drums. The kind that vibrate in your chest and rattle your teeth. Someone outside is really leaning into it. Steady, primal, relentless. Boom, boom, boom. You open your eyes to the dim, smoky longhouse, and you already know. It's fight day. Your stomach immediately flips. Could be nerves. Could be the porridge. You hope it's nerves, because at least you can't be expected to duel your own intestines. You sit up, stiff and sore, and take inventory of your body. Arms, still attached. Legs, uncooperative but functional. Soul, slightly frayed around the edges. You pull on your wool tunic, splash cold water on your face, again with the shock therapy, and step out into the misty morning. The entire village feels different. Alive. charged. There's a buzz in the air, like thunder, just waiting for a reason. People are moving quickly, sharpening blades, hauling wood, muttering to themselves with the quiet seriousness of people about to watch something important and bloody. Today, they're watching you. You, who used to scroll past gladiator memes in bed. You, who once pulled a muscle reaching for your phone charger. You, who cried that one time in gym class when a dodgeball hit you in the ankle. So yes, this is going to go well. The village square has been cleared and transformed into a makeshift arena. It's not Roman Colosseum grand, it's more circular dirt pit, surrounded by drunk people with time to kill. But it gets the job done. The boundaries are marked with stones and spears jammed into the earth. Someone has already laid bets on you to lose. They're not wrong. You're handed a weapon, not a real sword, of course. Too valuable for someone who couldn't tell the difference between a hilt and a hinge 2 weeks ago. Instead, they give you a blunt training axe and a round wooden shield. You immediately drop the shield. Someone sighs audibly. Your opponent is one of the village trainees, probably no older than 18, which would be comforting if he didn't have biceps like braided rope and the dead-eyed confidence of someone who's wrestled a bear and won. Twice. A circle forms. People shout. Meat is spilled. Children climb on fences to get a better view. You can't feel your feet, or your fingers, or, possibly, your will to live. The chieftain raises a hand. The crowd quiets. The drumbeat slows to a heartbeat. And just like that, he drops his hand. The fight begins. You don't exactly charge. It's more of a committed shuffle. You raise your shield. He raises his. You swing your axe in a way that feels impressive in your head but looks, from the outside, like you're swatting a fly with a canoe paddle. He blocks it easily and taps your shield with the flat of his blade. You wobble. It goes on like this for several minutes. He clearly knows this is just for sport. You clearly do not. You're fighting for survival. He's fighting for applause. You swing again. He dodges. You spin too far and trip on a root that wasn't there yesterday. You're sure of it. Laughter. You stand up quickly, brushing dirt off your dignity, and raise the axe again. You catch him off guard this time, barely. The axe connects with his shield with a thud, and the crowd actually gasps. You feel a brief, shining moment of triumph. Then he steps sideways and plants a foot on your chest, sending you straight into the mud. Your lungs forget how to function. You lie there, staring at the sky, wondering if the gods accept resignation letters. The chieftain laughs. The crowd claps. Your opponent helps you up, which somehow hurts more than the fall. But here's the twist. You lasted. You didn't win, obviously, but you stood your ground. You showed up. And in this culture, that matters more than you'd think. Later, someone hands you a cup of mead. A few people clap you on the shoulder. You sit on a log, dazed but upright, as people around you reenact your worst moments with exaggerated flair. You laugh along. Painfully. The post-fight rituals begin. There's feasting, singing, boasting. You recognize some of the songs from previous nights, but they feel different now, more intense, alive, a little terrifying. Your opponent approaches again and offers you a carved token, a small wooden disc with a symbol burned into it. It's not a trophy. It's not even pretty, but it means something. You're not just an outsider anymore. You're a participant. Kind of. Dinner is heartier than usual. Roasted meat, thick stews, stronger meat. You eat like someone who's been punched in the lungs and thinks this might be their last meal. It tastes like victory, but also definitely like turnips. After the meal, there's more ceremony. The warriors gather around the central fire and take turns telling stories, not just of the day's fight, but of battles past, of brothers lost, of victories earned. Each story is met with silence, then murmurs, then cheers. One man weeps halfway through his tale. No one mocks him. This is how legacies are built here. Not through social media posts or press releases, but through voices around the fire. As the night wears on, your body begins to shut down in slow stages. First your feet, then your back, then your sense of time. You're escorted, half-carried, back to the longhouse, where you collapse on the straw and immediately regret not being unconscious already. Your limbs twitch as you replay the fight in your head, over and over. That one good swing, that one bad fall, that moment where you forgot you were afraid. It's strange, falling asleep in a place that tried to kill you. But stranger still is how safe you feel now. As you drift off, you hear someone outside telling the story again, of how the outsider almost scored a hit. They're exaggerating, of course, but you don't correct them. Because if there's one thing you've learned here, stories are half memory, half magic, and you're finally in one. Sleep well, would-be warrior. Tomorrow, we talk about consequences, victory, defeat, and what comes after. You wake up in pain. Again, it's not a new pain. It's the same familiar one that's been lingering in your shoulders, your ribs, your spine, like a bad roommate who never pays rent and steals your meat. You lie there for a moment, staring at the longhouse beams above you, wondering how much of your body has officially declared independence. You move to sit up. A poor decision. Everything cracks. Your joints sound like someone stepping on a frozen loaf of bread. Your muscles protest. Loudly. You sigh. A sound now permanently etched into your morning routine. But today is different. Today, you're not just a confused, half-broken outsider. Today, you're the confused, half-broken outsider who didn't die in the fighting pit. Respect. Sort of. You limp outside to greet the morning. The village is slower today. Calmer. The air is thick with wood smoke and recovery. There's no cheering, no drumming, no yelling about goats. Just the soft rhythm of chores being done. Quietly. Almost reverently. This is what passes for a post-battle day off. You know, the kind where people still build fires, mend fences, and skin deer, but at a more relaxed pace. It's Viking relaxation. Just enough less chaos that you only fear for your life twice before breakfast. Someone nods at you as you pass. That's it, just a nod. No grunting, no laughter, no obvious pity. It's the Viking version of a gold star. Inside the longhouse, you sit by the hearth and try not to wince every time you breathe. Someone hands you a salve. It smells like crushed herbs, tree bark, and lies. You smear it on your ribs anyway. You ask what's in it. The answer: don't worry about it. Comforting. One of the village elders comes to sit beside you. She doesn't speak at first, just watches the fire with the quiet calm of someone who has seen more than a dozen outsiders stumble through this exact journey. When she does speak, her voice is soft but certain. You still alive. Good. It's unclear if that's a compliment or just an observation. But in this culture, either way, it's a win. She tells you stories. Not the ones from the sagas, the big, heroic ones, but the smaller ones. Of warriors who left the village and never came back. Of those who stayed and built things instead of breaking them. Of women who led raids. Of boys who cried and still became legends. You listen. For once, no one is yelling. No one is demanding you prove yourself. You're just here, breathing, healing, existing. Until someone starts yelling. A small boy runs in, shouting something about the goats. Again, you don't know what the goats did this time, but you quietly hope they rise up and take the village. You leave the longhouse and follow the shouting. Turns out, the goats are fine. It's a distraction. The real drama is over by the chieftain's house, where a group has gathered around two warriors deep in argument. The word coward is thrown. So is a stick. Things are escalating. You edge closer, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. Apparently, yesterday's fight has stirred up old tensions. The arena might have been ceremonial, but pride in this village is blood deep, and sometimes it spills. Before it does, the chieftain steps in. He doesn't yell. He doesn't even raise his voice. He just stares. The group disperses within seconds. The chieftain glances at you. No smile. No frown. Just the faintest lift of an eyebrow that says, "Welcome to the real game." Because in Viking culture, the arena is just the performance. The true battle, reputation, memory, how people tell your story after you're gone, and you're finally becoming a character in theirs. The rest of the day passes in fragments. You help chop wood badly. You attempt to cook something worse. You try to lift a barrel and pull something in your back that may never go back. At one point, someone challenges you to a game involving throwing bones into a carved-out skull. You lose. Horribly. But they cheer for you anyway. Pity or progress? You're not sure. Doesn't matter. It's evening now. The sky turns the color of iron, then rust, then velvet. The fire crackles. You sit with the others, eating stew that tastes vaguely like old boot but with a hint of onion. There's laughter. There's music. Someone hands you a horn of mead and says, "To the one who didn't die." High praise. But it's not just you. Others are recovering too. The warrior who twisted her ankle. The boy who bruised his pride more than his body. The elder with a cough that doesn't go away but refuses to slow her down. This village is a strange paradox, brutal and soft, unforgiving and loyal. You're beginning to see the rhythm underneath the chaos. As the stars appear, you find yourself near the edge of the village, looking out toward the darkened forest. The trees stand tall, ancient. You wonder how many watched as warriors left and never returned. How many heard whispered promises of vengeance or songs of love. And then, because this village never gives you peace for long, someone sneaks up behind you and smacks your shoulder with a stick. You spin, ready to throw hands with a ghost, only to find a child laughing hysterically. You scowl. They run. You realize you've officially been accepted. The pranks have begun. You return to the longhouse, aching, limping, exhausted. But this time, you lie down not as a guest, not as a stranger, but as someone with a name they remember, a story they'll tell, maybe as a joke, maybe as a warning, but still a story. Your mattress still smells like betrayal and goat hair, but you fall asleep faster now. The sounds of breathing, snoring, and distant laughter feel almost comforting. As you drift off, you wonder what tomorrow brings. You survived, but in a Viking village, survival is never the end. It's just the opening chapter of a much longer, much louder saga. Sleep well, shield sibling. Tomorrow, we talk about freedom, or the idea of it, and what that really meant for someone like you. You wake up to silence. Not the peaceful, restful kind. No birds singing or gentle wind through the trees. This is a heavy, thick silence, like the calm right before a storm, or just after someone shouted something very rude, and everyone's too shocked to respond. You sit up slowly, every muscle protesting. Today feels different. Not because the aches have magically disappeared, they haven't, but because something's changed in the air. You're not just a visitor fumbling through their days. You're someone with a story, a role, a thread woven into the village's rough tapestry. Freedom. A word you've been thinking about a lot lately. You want it. You imagine it like the wide-open sky over the fjords. But here, freedom isn't what you think. You're reminded of the old stories told around the fire, of warriors who fought not just enemies, but their own people, of slaves who earned their freedom through blood and fire, of bonds stronger than chains. Here, freedom is complicated, because in this village, your fate is tangled in loyalty, obligation, and the memories others carry of you. You step outside, feeling the cold bite at your skin. The longhouse door creaks open, and you glimpse faces, some familiar, some still just shapes in the shadows. People who once ignored you now nod as you pass. The village is alive, breathing, pulsing with stories and expectations. Today, you're no longer just surviving. You're participating. A man approaches, a trader from a nearby town. He looks at you, sizing you up, then offers a deal. Some supplies in exchange for your help on the next raid. Raid. That word carries weight here. It's both a promise and a threat. Adventure and death rolled into one. You hesitate. The chieftain appears beside you, silent but commanding. His eyes say, "This is your chance." You want to say no, but you don't, because freedom here isn't about saying no. It's about choosing which chains to wear. The day stretches on with tasks, repairing the longboat, sharpening weapons, preparing supplies. The villagers move with purpose, each action tied to survival, honor, and legacy. You notice the small moments, the way an elder's hand lingers on a child's shoulder, the secret smiles shared between friends, the whispered prayers to gods unseen but deeply felt. As night falls, the village gathers once more around the fire. Stories flow like mead, wild, fierce, and beautiful. You listen, finally understanding that this is what it means to belong. Not because you're safe, but because you're seen. The fire warms your face. The laughter surrounds you. And for the first time since arriving, the ache inside feels a little less sharp. You close your eyes. The longhouse creaks, the stars will overhead, and the Viking village breathes on, unyielding, untamed, and strangely welcoming. Sleep well, new saga bearer. Tomorrow, the real journey begins.